Good morning, everyone, and welcome to WebGility's Ask a QuickBooks ProAdvisor webinar. My name is Christina Del Villar, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at WebGility, and I will be your host for today. Here's our agenda for the next hour. I'm going to cover some housekeeping items, and then I will introduce our QuickBooks ProAdvisors for the day. And then we're actually going to spend a little bit of time talking about the top 5 questions that we get asked a lot here. And once we cover that, we will then go ahead and answer some of the questions that came in from you guys. We had over 50 questions, and they're coming in right now as we speak. So I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them, but we definitely will get to as many as we can, and those that we don't actually get to, we will follow up with you directly. So in terms of housekeeping, everyone is set on mute. If you do have questions, some of you have already found the questions box on your panel, so please go ahead and submit them. We will pull some of them in as we're going through the webinar, and again, any of the questions that we don't get to, we'll follow up with you after the webinar. Once we are done, we will make this recording available to everyone and send it out, so probably early next week we'll have that ready for you. So. All right, now let me go ahead and introduce our QuickBooks ProAdvisors. We have Chris and Raphael with us today. Chris is a Gold Certified ProAdvisor for QuickBooks Enterprise and for QBO. He specializes in accounting and inventory management. As you all know, inventory can be a big challenge, and we've had a lot of questions submitted around this, so hopefully we'll be able to get to some of those and answer some of your questions. Raphael's QuickBooks is a QBO ProAdvisor as well. He specializes in retail inventory management, and he also has an extensive background in accounting and also in retail. So thank you guys both for being here today.
Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned before, we wanted to start off with some of the top 5 questions that we get around here. So the first question is there a way to find out what my most profitable items are? As most of you know, as a small or mid-sized business owner, it's really important to understand which items are performing well, which ones have higher margin, and that sort of thing. So, Chris, maybe you can take this and help us understand how we can figure this out.
Sure. QuickBooks has a report called the Item Profitability Report, and it's kind of hidden in a weird area. If you go into QuickBooks and go to your Reports tab, it's in the Job, Time, and Mileage section. So once you pull that report up, you can select for any date range, and it will show you what you actually paid for those items during that date range, how much money you collected from selling those items for that date range, and the profitability. So you can find out what your most profitable items were in April or March or last year, or however you want to slice and dice it. And a lot of my clients find that to be a very helpful report.
Great. Thank you, Chris. That's a great answer. The next question we hear a lot is, what are the most 3 important things people should check out in QuickBooks and how often? So for a lot of business owners, obviously accounting is probably not their passion, but they still need to understand what they should be looking at and how often. It's extremely important for them as a business owner. So Raphael, maybe you could take this question.
Yeah, so the top 3 most important things that I would always check in QuickBooks is probably my cash flow, my burn rate, and my profit and losses. Those 3 things really tell you how your business is doing in a specific amount of time and really on a current day-to-day basis. You could always kind of check what's coming in and out to make sure that you can cover your bills, that you are making sure that your business is profitable. You're also wanting to check, the frequency of how you're doing with your bank accounts and ensuring that, your business is staying profitable for you to be continuing replenishing inventory and making sure that, things can be run without ever having to continuously, kind of live by your paycheck, so to speak. But yeah, those would be the 3 things that I would always check.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question is, how do QuickBooks and WebGility ECC work together to give me insight into my business? Obviously, it's not enough to know that it's great that you know that your products are selling, but a business owner today needs to have a lot more insight. So, Chris, can you walk us through this?
Sure. So what you have to realize with QuickBooks is the information you can get out of your QuickBooks company file is only as good as the data that is put in. So if you're just doing journal entries, or if you're using QuickBooks kind of like a check register, you're not going to be able to get nearly as much data from your reporting tools and other things within the program. What WebGility's ECC does, especially for online retailers, is it takes all those orders, all that very granular data, and puts it into QuickBooks for you, so you don't have to spend hours manually entering it, and you can actually spend your time doing the managerial stuff you want to do for your business, such as running those reports, focusing on marketing and sales.
Great, thank you. And before we actually get to question number 4, Raphael, we're getting a lot of questions about the burn rate report that you just mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about that? Or we can come back to that as well, because I know that we're probably going to get some more questions on that one. So another question that we get a lot is how do I manage multiple channels? So whether companies already have multiple channel businesses or they're looking to scale, it's really important for them to understand how they're going to manage those channels in QuickBooks. So can you talk a little bit about that, Raphael?
Yeah. So as a QuickBooks ProAdvisor, and I also work here at WebGility with ECC, we do like to promote the fact that ECC does connect with over 40 different sales channels through the online, shopping cart platforms. So we do encounter a lot of times when we do have clients that are using multiple sales channels, and a lot of them would like to track, how their sales are doing across multiple storefronts. So the way that you can do this in QuickBooks and through ECC is using class tracking, something that we could show you right now are to enable class tracking within QuickBooks. So within the edit preferences of your company file, you would go over to the accounting, and under class, you would choose to use class tracking for your transactions. Now, within ECC, when you're setting up and configuring your shopping cart, you have the ability to then, for each transaction, set up a defaulted class. So if you were saying, like using, for example, 3 shopping carts, Amazon, Volusion, and Magento, then you can create those classes within QuickBooks, shown here on this slide. So under Lists, Class List, and then you can just right-click within that window and you can create new classes for you. I've created Amazon, eBay, and Volusion here. So if you were to be bringing in transactions through ECC, posting them into QuickBooks, over a period of time, you could then create a report, a profit and loss report by class, and that would show you a breakdown of your 3 or more sales channels that you can then have a good report to show how much sales you're bringing in per sales channel through the storefronts that you have with ECC.
Great, thank you. And then rounding out our top 5 question, this is about inventory, and the question we get a lot is where should I be tracking my master inventory? So Raphael or Chris, which one do you want to take that one?
So I'll jump on that one. Many people who are doing online retailing get kind of confused on where they should be entering their inventory. Do they enter it in Magento? Do they enter it in QuickBooks? Do they enter it somewhere else? My answer unequivocally is that you should be entering it to QuickBooks for a couple of different reasons. One, if you're selling on multiple sales channels, using QuickBooks as your master inventory location allows it to be a hub. If you're using a product like WebGility's ECC, it can sync the quantity from QuickBooks out to each one of your sales channels so that they all are showing your most up-to-date quantity. The other reason is that QuickBooks is calculating your average cost based on what you're actually paying for your items. And that's not something that Magento or any other program can do. So if you choose to use Magento as your master inventory location, you lose the ability of actually knowing what your real costs are.
Great, thank you. And as I mentioned, we've received a lot of questions as part of the registration process, and the questions are coming in now. So I think we're just going to jump right into other questions that have been submitted and go from there. So Jamie is asking, how do I easily turn purchase order items into invoices? Rafa, do you want to?
Yeah, so ECC handles purchase orders specifically with a setup and configuration to use whatever drop shipping methods you may be using within QuickBooks. So we are able to customize purchase orders so that we can hit multiple vendors if you have specific vendors per item that you'll be using. You can also create purchase orders for every item if you're just drop shipping normally. And then we also have the ability to assign multiple POs if you wanted to create a PO for each individual vendor within QuickBooks. Now, when you're talking about using purchase orders to converting into invoices within QuickBooks in a manual process, unfortunately, there is no really easy way of doing that. Obviously, a purchase order is it's a bill you are paying your vendors as money going out for items that you are going to be receiving. Invoices and sales receipts are money coming in for sales that you are processing and completing for your business. So when you have a purchase order and your vendor then fulfills that purchase order, you will manually also have to create an invoice to reflect the sale of those items that you then received. Unfortunately, there is no way to convert a PO into an invoice.
So I kind of feel like this question is almost asked backwards. I'm guessing that the person asking this is in a drop ship situation, and so what really needs to happen is when they get an order from a customer requesting an item, that at the same time they have an invoice created for that customer for what they paid them, and get a purchase order to be created to send out to the vendor so the vendor can then fulfill the order for them. And like Raphael had mentioned, that is something that ECC can help with.
Great, thank you. And as I mentioned before, if you do have questions, go ahead and enter them into your question panel, and we will try to get to them. Next question, this is from Rhonda. How do I switch from QuickBooks Pro to QuickBooks Online? Raphael, do you want to?
Yeah, so switching from Pro to QuickBooks Online. The thing that I would say is the how is kind of easy. It's really about the what and the when to do so. Conversions from desktop versions of QuickBooks into QuickBooks Online, Intuit has tried to make it as simple as possible for you to export your company file data, and there's an importing function within QuickBooks Online for you to move some of that data. So they have very good kind of like procedural step-by-steps on where to find those options within desktop and online. Now, what I would rather have us focus on right now is what actually gets converted over to QuickBooks Online and when you should actually do that. So what gets converted over? A lot of what you have in desktop does come over into QBO, but there are some limitations of QBO that, unfortunately, because QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop has more options for in terms of like templates and fields to the different options you have for the character limits within the desktop versions of QuickBooks. QuickBooks Online does not have that extensive amount of data to incorporate. So what QuickBooks Online does is significantly reduce the information that is transferred over. A great example of this is the products and the items that you have within QuickBooks desktop version. In QuickBooks Online, we are only given one type of item, and that's a products and services. When you are creating those items within QBO from a desktop company file, it's a very tedious process in that QuickBooks Online currently creates 3 instances of every item that you create. And those 3 instances of the items aren't necessarily needed. One of those instances is actually like your cost of goods sold. So it actually generates a copy of your product and creates a cost of goods sold version of that product, and it's going to eat up your item list within QBO. So a lot of businesses see this conversion being very tedious because your item list has now grown 3-fold because each individual items now come with a set of 3. So sometimes you kind of have to plan ahead of time and making sure that you dedicate some time to cleaning up that item list once you've converted. Something else that I would recommend on the when is you really want to make sure that you clean up a lot of your lists within your desktop company file before you convert them over into QBO. A reason being that when you convert lists over into QuickBooks Online, any inactive items within your customer list, within your item list, will also move over into QBO, but they will be marked as inactive and they cannot be deleted. So that's a problem there. So if you have a lot of items within your lists that you know to be inactive, you don't necessarily need to see them in your new company within QBO, do some cleanup ahead of time, really get ahead of the game and knock out a lot of those things before you eat up so much data within your QBO company online.
So I've been doing quite a few of these conversions for my clients, especially the last 2 years with the big push Intuit's been making to bring people online. And another tip I would like to recommend is that you run both a profit and loss and balance sheet for all dates in your QuickBooks Online. Then after you finish doing the conversion, run it in Desktop and compare the two. What happens is, I would say 1 out of 4 conversions I do, a couple transactions get dropped. So with the knowledge from the balance sheet and the P&L, you can dig down and figure out what transaction was dropped and recreate it.
Great, thanks, Raphael and Chris. This is a question that just came in. I'm not sure if we'll be able to answer it here. We might have to pick it up offline. Rich is asking, regarding class tracking, what if you're using Channel Advisor? So technically, you have one store but multiple channels, so you can't use the default class setting.
Sure. So if you're using Channel Advisor to aggregate sales from a bunch of different stores and you're using ECC to post those in, the 2 different ways you can do it is either come up with different order statuses for the orders from the different carts. That would really be the best way. Then we can create a different transaction with a different class for each different order status.
Great, that sounds good. Also, somebody's asking, James is asking about FIFO. So is first in, first out a must for e-commerce accounting? Chris?
Sure, so FIFO is definitely not a must. Just for people out there who don't know what FIFO is, it stands for first in, first out. So rather than using the average costing method, that is the default cost method for QuickBooks, what it does is it keeps track of if you bought 3 of the same item, you paid $10 one day for it, $8 the next day, and $6 the following day, then they would be sold with the same cost. $10 for the first one sold, $8 for the second one sold, and $6 for the third one sold. So QuickBooks would keep track of what they call FIFO layers. Now, for big ticket items where the cost changes dramatically, that may be something that you want. However, actually, in my opinion, average costing is a much more accurate and efficient way of keeping track of your cost of goods sold over the long term. So while FIFO sounds good on paper, it can actually be quite confusing, and when you look at your P&L, you may be wondering, why am I seeing the costs like this? Where with average cost, it just flows a lot smoother.
Great, thank you. I have a question here, and they're asking, how do we keep our QuickBooks file healthy? What are some maintenance tips and some of the biggest errors that we make as users? Chris, I'm going to throw that one at you, and Raphael, feel free to jump in.
Sure. So a couple things with QuickBooks company files. The first one is they do not like to be moved around. So if you're trying to move the location of your company file to a different folder or a different place on your computer, you should not just cut and copy the file like you can do with Word documents. What you need to do is open it up, create a portable copy of the company file, and then restore the portable company file into whatever location you want to move it to. That's one way that I see company files getting messed up. Another thing is, although QuickBooks doesn't technically have a file size limit, they do have a limit of how big a company file can be to have information written continuously in the database. Once that limit is hit, which is about 350 megs for Pro Premier and a gig for QuickBooks Enterprise, once that limit is hit, the information isn't written next to each other anymore. It gets written in random open places on the database. What that can do is cause file fragments. you have too many file fragments, over 20 is a good line there, you can start to get data corruption. You'll notice that because reports will take longer than 10 seconds to run, up to a couple minutes. It'll be hard for people to log in. You may even see your balance sheet not balanced, things like that happening. So therefore, what you need to do from time to time, especially in old company files or company files that have a large amount of data, is restart it. And that means picking a date and time when you stop. A lot of times people do January 1st, making opening balance entries for all your accounts, re-importing your item list, customer list, vendor list, and basically starting from scratch. So all your historical data will be in your old company file, but now you'll have a new, squeaky clean company file without all those data file fragments and problems.
And do you recommend they do that on an annual basis or when they see issues, or is there sort of a standard for that?
So it really depends on the amount of data in the company file. If you're doing tens of thousands of transactions every month, you probably have to do it annually. Some companies can get away with using the same file for 10 years. So really what you want to do is just keep track of your company file size, and if you hit F2 on your computer, it will pull up a screen that will show you the size of your company file and also how many data file fragments there are. If that goes over 20, then you might want to start planning on restarting your company file the following year.
Okay, great, thank you. This one is for Raphael. Landon wants to know, what is the best way to break down kits and bundles in QuickBooks, especially using ECC?
Yeah, so within ECC, we have the ability to handle bundles from a variety of different shopping carts. Something that we have within the software is breaking down your bundles. So let's say you had 3 items within a bundle product on your Magento shopping cart. We have the ability to download that order and then separate the 3 items from within that bundle, so that within QuickBooks, if you don't have bundles set up, it would just hit those 3 items within QuickBooks and decrease your inventory when you sell a bundle. The other way that can be approached when handling bundles within QuickBooks and ECC is, creating a bundle within QuickBooks that incorporates the same 3 items that you created. So you'll have a item within QuickBooks that is your bundle, and it'll have an item number. We can use the example of SKU123. Within Magento, I would say then make your bundle product within the shopping cart and make sure that the naming convention is uniform, so that you have that same SKU number within Magento being SKU123. In this method, you have an order coming in through ECC. The SKU number associated to that item or bundle that is sold through the shopping cart is the same as the item number that is in QuickBooks, and ECC will be able to use its matching criteria to see the two being one and the same, and you can then incorporate or you can post that order into QuickBooks, and it'll hit the bundle within QuickBooks correctly and still decrease inventory the same exact way.
Great, Rafa. Also, if you can expand on that a bit, somebody is asking, what are bundles in QuickBooks? Are you talking about a group item?
Yes, yeah, those are group items. I'm sorry, I just kind of wanted to use the lingo that was being used with the question. But yes, we are talking about group items.
Perfect, thank you. Also, we have a question from Mike. He's saying, we have QuickBooks QBO set up with our wholesale price. How can we have our retail price be synced between QBO and ECC? I don't know if one of you want to take that one.
Sure, it really doesn't matter wholesale or retail. ECC looks at the actual price on the order that the customer was charged. Whatever that price is, it puts it into QuickBooks.
Okay, great. We also have a question. This is from John. Is there an easy way to enter refunds from vendors on inventory returns that reduce inventory quantity and credits a bank or credit card?
Sure. So what that is called in QuickBooks is a vendor credit. So you would basically just make the vendor credit, put the items on there that were being returned to your vendor, and that will reduce them from your inventory, and then we'll have a credit for you on the account with that vendor, so the next time you purchase something from them, you would apply that credit to the bill that you receive.
Okay, great. And Rafa, going back to bundling, somebody is asking how bundling affects inventory tracking.
Well, if you use your group items within QuickBooks, you are still associating those items to being part of your inventory. So the quantities don't change from within those items. All you're doing is selling the bundle, which has the sum of all of the quantity on hands for what's associated to that bundle. So whenever you sell a group item, all it does is decrease the quantity for each individual item.
Something I want to point out about group items in QuickBooks is that the price of the group item is just the price of all items in the group added together. So if you sell your bundles for a little bit of a discount than if people bought them individually, then you also have to include a discount line item in that group item to make the price be correct.
Great, thank you. So this question is from Frank. He's asking, where can I hire really good ProAdvisors? So I don't know if you guys have advice on or want to give that here, but
sure.
It's a question.
So you can go to Intuit, and they have a Find a QuickBooks ProAdvisor page that will help you match up with someone in your area. If you would like to purchase time with myself or Raphael, you can do that through WebGility's website in the services section. So that's something that's definitely possible.
Okay. Yeah, and it sounds like the question that he had, because I guess you can only sort of sort by zip code, not necessarily by specialty, so it might be hard to find the right person that you're looking for. So, you know, maybe join some of the LinkedIn groups that are out there and see what some of the ProAdvisors are doing and if they're a good fit with your organization. Here's another question from Frank. I don't know if it's the same Frank, but it says he has 2 websites and QuickBooks Premier. Can you organize all of these in a simple interface?
Yeah, that's exactly what WebGility's product ECC was designed to do. It connects both of those websites to QuickBooks, imports the data in there for you so you don't have to worry about it, and also automates the inventory syncing. So that's the answer to that question.
Great, excellent. So the next question I have is, what are the benefits of QuickBooks Desktop version versus QBO?
So I think we can both probably tackle this one. Being that Chris is a ProAdvisor for desktop and I'm a ProAdvisor for online, we both kind of work in 2 different worlds sometimes, but we do kind of see the benefits and the differences between using desktop and online. I would go ahead and start off by saying that, you know, one of the great benefits of working in the cloud with online is that you get to have it accessible to you wherever you are. You know, you have your users, you have 2 accountants for certain tiers of QuickBooks Online that can access your company from wherever you can get access to the cloud. You have the ability to, you know, automate a lot of processes within QuickBooks Online. You can do automations for invoicing, for sales receipts. You have the automatic like email reporting that sends to you. You know, kind of giving you like a summary on a regular basis. A lot of automation goes into QuickBooks Online that I think you can't really get with desktop. Yeah, Chris?
Sure. So one of the things that drives me crazy about QuickBooks Online is that you cannot make a backup of your company file. One thing that I do all the time with my desktop files is before I do any kind of a big import or any kind of big change in the company file, I make a backup, and then I can always just restore the backup if I want to do that. QuickBooks Online, however, is always a live file, so you got to be really careful with things like imports. Otherwise, the thing about QuickBooks Desktop versus QuickBooks Online is it's a more fully built out program. They really wanted to, the new thinking with cloud-based programs is simplify. They want to make it easy. They don't want it to be too confusing. They don't want there to be too many buttons. Desktop, on the other hand, has a ton of features. It's almost overly confusing. There's so much different stuff you can do, but that gives you a lot of granularity and the different options you have, the different reports you can run, the different ways you can slice and dice the data. So it just kind of depends on your style and how much you want out of your accounting software. If you really want to get in there and go granular, you probably want desktop. If you just want it to work and you want it to be more simplified and streamlined, then online may be a better choice for you. Also, if you're extremely high volume, if you're doing 1,000 orders, a week, if you have 50,000, 60,000 customers, those are things that would mean you probably want to be in QuickBooks Enterprise. QuickBooks Online can handle it, but it's going to be extremely slow and frustrating for you to click through to the different windows and access everything.
Yeah, so I was just going to piggyback off of what Chris said. A lot of business owners may be very inclined to go towards QBO, and like Chris was saying, that it is very simplistic. It is a lot better looking than the desktop versions, I think. And you find yourself gravitating towards the cloud. And something that I like to stress to our clients is just because you're going to a cloud-based software does not mean that you have the freedom to have so much data. There are so many people that are also occupying this space with you that Intuit cannot dedicate an infinite amount of space for you to use your company with. So there's a lot of restrictions that go into QuickBooks Online that kind of play similar to how space and your company file size does with desktop. In that within QBO there are target limits. There are definitely like a transaction list limit within your company that as soon as you hit that amount, I believe the max, and that's not the max limit, but I think after you hit 350,000 list items, that being transactions, customers, everything combined in your company on QBO, you start to see a very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Your company starts to perform, the lag of it all starts to kind of, sorry, words are getting lost to me right now when I'm talking, but you start to see a decrease in performance in your QuickBooks company within the cloud.
Great, thank you. This sort of piggybacks on that. This is from Alan. He's hoping we can discuss the implications of Intuit's plan to discontinue desktop at some point. So I know that there's been talks about it, and they've gone back on some of the original dates they have, but Chris, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on there?
Sure. So first of all, I just want to say Intuit is a publicly traded company, so they are not allowed to release a lot of their plans, and except for in a very official way. So things that are happening a lot of times are rumors in the QuickBooks world. Yes, Intuit has really been making a push to move everyone into QuickBooks Online. However, Intuit is not going to be getting rid of their desktop product. They've got over 6 million customers using it. That is not a customer base that they want to alienate, and it is frankly a revenue stream that they're not going to want to get rid of. I do not work for Intuit, so this is just my personal opinion as a ProAdvisor, but I'm I know a lot of people in the QuickBooks world, and I can confidently say that desktop is not going anywhere.
Thank you. Here's a question from Phyllis. Do refunds also show up within Webgility's solution?
So we onboard our clients and we try to assist them in setting up their ECC software to best suit their businesses. Something that we always recommend that our clients do is not bring in refunded orders or any kind of transaction that is associated to a refund. The reason being is because there's just so many different flavors to refunds that it's hard for us as a software to default any kind of settings towards refunds or to automate a refund process because there just are so many different variations to how those will work that really we leave it up to being a manual process.
So the flavors that Raphael is talking about is someone can return an item to you that you put back in stock, and then you can either send them money back or send them a new item back. So there's two flavors right there. or they can return an item that is damaged or broken that you cannot put back in inventory, and then you could send them money or a new item back. So there's 4 flavors right there. In addition, the one thing that ECC can do to help you with refunds is cancel orders. If an order gets canceled before you ever ship the item out, that's something that ECC can automate and do correctly with your QuickBooks file. Another reason that makes regular refunds, like if someone bought 10 items and they just want to return 1, it's dealt with inherently differently in a shopping cart than in QuickBooks. In a shopping cart, the order just changes from 10 items to 9 items. In QuickBooks, you still have that original sales receipt or invoice for 10 items, and then a credit memo is created for basically a -1 item. So that's another part of the disconnect.
Great, thank you. Scott is asking, he says that we're launching a new e-store with products that are very variant heavy. Any rules of thumb as to whether it's better to start by building the products within QuickBooks or in the store? And I'll also just point out that we just released a blog this week talking about this, so you can go to our website and learn more, but if one of you guys wants to take that.
Yeah, so ECC can handle variant products, and certain shopping carts we feel handle it better than others. But if we're talking about starting from scratch, if we're talking about having a blank slate on both sides, I would always recommend that we create those items and their within QuickBooks before you move them into the shopping cart. The only thing that I stress, regardless of how you are going to be creating your brand new storefront with your products and your variances, is always making sure that you keep in mind of using a uniform naming convention. It can't be stressed enough. With not only inventory management best practices, but also with the software of ECC, matching criteria between your items within your QuickBooks company file and your products within your storefront, having that uniform naming convention is key. So you want to maybe start thinking about how you're going to start identifying these variances within your parent product. Start thinking about maybe a sequence of numbers that represent certain characteristics of your products and their variances. An example I can give you is, let's say you're selling shoes, and you have your first series, the series of numbers, let's say the first 2 digits are, for shoes, you would classify it as being 0, 1. Then you would have a dash, and then you would have maybe another series of numbers that identified what the size was for that specific kind of shoe. So it would be 0-10.5 for a 10.5 shoe. And then you'd have a last dash, and it would be maybe 15, and that 15 represented the color of the shoe. So in that sense, you would be able to understand what that SKU number represented for the item detail and description that then you can incorporate within your shopping cart in your store, and that would present to you the uniform naming convention that we were just talking about.
Great, thank you. Monica is, it's not really a question, I guess it's a question. She says she just wants to learn more about how to use QuickBooks more efficiently and effectively. Do you guys have some ideas on where to go to better understand it?
So they always have like those QuickBooks for Dummies books that you can get. The problem with those is they're very, very basic. And if you have questions that are unique to your business or how you specifically want to be using QuickBooks, it's best to find a reputable QuickBooks ProAdvisor. And I mentioned earlier about going onto Intuit's page, or Christina had mentioned checking out LinkedIn groups for ProAdvisors. Also, you can book myself or Raphael on WebJollie's website.
Excellent, thank you. Alan is asking, how do you record Amazon Seller Central settlement payments? Say that 5 times fast, properly. So, i.e., what are line item fees for P&L accounts?
So what I believe you're talking about is the expenses and fees that Amazon charges you for doing business on their marketplace. The way that I think is the easiest way to set it up that I have my clients do is, first of all, I have them make a clearing account for Amazon, which is basically a specialized bank account or virtual bank account. So you go into your chart of accounts, create a new bank account called Amazon Clearing. Then what you do is you have all your income from Amazon go into that clearing account. Every 2 weeks when you get a new settlement report, you look in that report, figure out how much money you were charged in expenses and fees, and make a bill for that amount, paying that bill out of the clearing account. So total income minus expenses and fees should equal the amount of money that is going into your checking account. You then just do a bank transfer from the clearing account into the checking account to mirror in QuickBooks the money that hit your bank. So just remember, use a clearing account, total money in, minus expenses and fees, minus money that hit the bank should clear down to zero. That's why it's called a clearing account.
Great, thank you. And our apologies, we have a combination of people on the call today. Somebody's actually asking what ECC is, and we did not explain sort of what Webgility does and what ECC is, so somebody can take that quickly.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that question came up because we do get some clients sometimes that are a little confused. So Webgility is the company. We are Webgility. ECC is our software that we use. So we do have a few different types of software that we provide. ECC Desktop for all of our QuickBooks Desktop clients that use the desktop software of QuickBooks, and we have ECC Cloud, which is dedicated to our QuickBooks Online clients. What we like to describe ECC as being is a bridge between your QuickBooks and your storefront, your online e-commerce retail store. So we try to automate your business for you in being able to download your orders from your shopping cart and then posting them as transactions within QuickBooks.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I apologize for not doing that a little earlier in the webinar. We have a series of questions from Walter. I'll give these to you, Raphael. The first question is, what is the best practice for people using QuickBooks POS connecting to Shopify or a 3D cart?
Okay, so honestly, I feel like I know we're kind of being a little specific with Shopify and 3D cart and then POS, and Walter, I'll go ahead and just kind of say that the best practices I feel we have here at Webgility for our product is kind of uniform for all shopping carts. I would say that we couldn't stress it enough, and I've been talking about it a little bit for a lot of the questions that we've been asked today. Uniform naming convention is huge. It's a best practice for every business that's working with inventory. It's also going to make your life within ECC software 10 times easier. I would say that another great best practice when plugging your QuickBooks POS and your online shopping cart together is knowing your shopping cart workflows. I would say that making sure that going into the software you understand what each of your order statuses means. What your workflow is for when an order is placed within your store and how each step is handled. Right now, because a lot of the people on this call may be new to ECC, you have all of your manual processes down. You understand when an order comes in, what pending means, when it shifts to unshipped, when it moves to shipped and completed, and then you can archive the order. But a lot of times you really want to make sure that you understand the steps and the procedures that you are going to be taking when starting to begin the automation process within ECC. And then the last thing that I would say for POS, maybe performing like a physical inventory before you start to use ECC, because we do offer the ability to synchronize your inventory quantity on hands. And so before getting started with the software, I would probably suggest anybody who is tracking inventory to do a physical count of what you know to be true, because in the end you're going to want to dedicate your QuickBooks company file to being like your master inventory data. So ECC would rely on your numbers that you have within QuickBooks, and I think those are probably the top three things.
Great, thank you. We have a question here about sales tax. So basically they're saying that gathering the data for quarterly city and county sales tax is a long process, which is a nice way of saying it. Does QBO help with that process at all?
So sales tax is a complicated issue, and the answer is it really depends. It depends on what the sales tax laws are in your particular state. Some states just charge one flat sales tax for everyone in the state. Other states, like California, for instance, have a different tax district for every single county and some specific cities in the state. That makes it much more complicated because you need to know how much not only do you owe to the State Board of Equalization, but you need to know how much you owe to each city and county as well. So really the best, easiest way to do it is there's a third-party program called Avalara that can plug into QuickBooks, it can plug into your shopping cart, and it will gather all that data for you and make it much easier to report.
Great, and then Kevin has an add-on question that says, what about selling out of state?
In terms of tax?
Yes.
So when you're using your online store to ship to out-of-state customers, you do not charge tax.
So I'm not an accountant, and I'm not really allowed to give tax advice, but I have heard that the one thing you got to think about, though, is if you have a significant physical presence in a state, then it's not counted as out of state. So
Right.
I don't know what the line is for that. I don't know if you having a remote worker in a state qualifies for that. I don't know if you using a fulfillment center in a different state qualifies for that.
I think it's a warehouse. If you're let's say you're based your business is based in California, but you have a warehouse in Utah that you use to ship your inventory to your customers, then any orders that you have in the state of Utah need to be charged tax. Even though you're in California, but your warehouse is based in a state, then if your warehouse is large enough within that state, then I believe you then have to apply tax to any orders that are within that state.
So we're getting a lot of tax questions, and as Chris mentioned, we're not tax experts here. We do partner again with Avalara, who has some information, and I think one of the best things to do is look at states that you have a presence in and find out what the laws are there, and then there's definitely solutions once you know what the implications are for you. So, so some of those questions we'll take offline as well. So this is Kathy asking, what are some reports that will help our business make better decisions?
Sure. I can jump on that one. So I already had kind of mentioned earlier the item profitability report. I think that's a great report for businesses. It's a great way to look at your item list and determine, where you want to put your marketing dollars, which items you want to feature more prominently on your website, that sort of thing. Another report that I think is great is if you go to the report section, go to inventory, there's the stock status by item report. What that report shows you is all the items you have in stock, how much you have on sales orders, how many are reserved for assemblies, it shows you your available quantity, and the really cool thing is if you have set minimum reorder points on your items, it will immediately show you at a glance which items have fallen below your minimum reorder point, and you can auto-create purchase orders for those items that have fallen below the minimum reorder point. So that really helps you, once you've figured out what those reorder points are, it really helps you keep on top of keeping your items in stock at all times. And the third one that I really like is an inventory valuation summary. I'm kind of an inventory geek, if you can't tell. But anyways, inventory valuation summary also shows you all the items in your item list, how many you have in stock, and also the average cost of those items. So the average cost of items times the number of items you have in stock added all the way up at the bottom, that value on your inventory valuation summary should be the same amount that is your inventory asset account on your balance sheet. If those two values don't match, you need to figure out why, because the IRS, they really want to see that report. They want to see the actual cost times the quantity to get a number. They don't want to just see a random number in your inventory asset account.
Great. So this question we might have already answered, but I'll go ahead and you might be able to expand on it. Our QBO company file has been with us for 10 years. The file is very large, and we're constantly, quote, rebuilding data to fix reports such as the balance sheet. What can we do to optimize our company file and keep these issues from constantly surfacing?
Sure. So that sounds like a perfect example of needing to restart your company file. What I would do is create a new QuickBooks Online account, do opening balance entries, import your lists, and then also enter in all transactions that are in your active accounts receivable or accounts payable, and go from there. That's kind of like a very high-level description. You probably are going to want to retain a QuickBooks ProAdvisor, someone who has experience restarting company files to help you with that. But that's what's going to have to happen if you want to stop rebuilding your data all the time, because as Raphael had mentioned, QuickBooks Online can really only hold so much data before it starts to get bogged down and slow.
Great, thank you. And Raphael, you covered some of this already, but what's the best way to set up items in order to track inventory if you have different colors and sizes?
Yeah, so I think I went into that on a previous question, but you know, it is, and maybe I'll try to give a little more clarification in terms of the naming convention that I was using, but you know, creating your parent items and then the variances that go with that parent item within QuickBooks. You know, make sure that you're not using the names of what the product is. There's a column for that in QuickBooks. It's product description. Item name and number should really be more unique, and it should really be more of an identifier than it is actually, you know, a copy and paste of what the item actually is that you're selling. So, you know, just making sure that the best way to track inventory for those kinds of things is using a sequence and a series of unique letters and numbers that not only assist you in your character limit, because obviously within each of those columns within QuickBooks you have a character limit, so you can't just, you know, post the paragraph of the description of what you're selling. So really try to consolidate your naming conventions so that QuickBooks has an easier time and you also have an easier time in identifying those things.
Great, and then sort of as an extension of that, someone's asking, do we have inventory forecasting tools?
So we do offer inventory forecasting tool, but only for our desktop clients. We call that the LOCAD, L-O-K-A-D, and you know that gets into some more detail that we can probably take offline, or you can research also through WebGility's website.
Great, thank you. Here's a question from Bruce. I'll give this one to Chris. We need almost 2 months lead time to get goods from China to our warehouse. How do we plan our inventory under these conditions?
So figuring out the correct reorder points for your items and doing the sales forecasting for them is a combination of science and, frankly, black magic. There's a little bit of guesswork going on. Of course, the larger your data set is, the more accurate you can get. But in a nutshell, what you want to do is first figure out the lead time it takes for you to receive an item from your vendor once you submit a purchase order, which in your case is 2 months, right? So then what you want to do is look at your turnaround time for your item, meaning how long it takes to sell out your stocked products. So what you're looking for is how many products do you usually sell in 2 months, build yourself a buffer, and that will then be your reorder point for that item. Then you can enter in that into the minimum reorder point for all the items in QuickBooks, and then run that report I just talked about to then automatically create the purchase orders for you.
Great, excellent. We just have time for a few more questions. This question is from Karen. They have a Volusion store, and their QuickBooks is hosted on Right Networks, all of which are great partners of ours. They don't have any inventory, and everything is drop shipped. They're wondering, does WebGility offer a cloud-based solution that can create POs and also offer remote access for employees?
So unfortunately, as of today, our cloud-based product, ECC Cloud, does not have the ability to create invoices. I'm sorry, to create purchase orders. The only transactions that we are able to post through your store into ECC Cloud and then into QBO are invoices and sales receipts.
So I just want to clarify, though, that our desktop-based product completely does that. That's exactly how it works. You select which items you want to be dropship items. When it sees those items on an order, not only does it create the invoice or sales receipt, it also will create a purchase order or purchase orders if there's different preferred vendors for the items on that order.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I guess this will probably be the final question since it's almost the top of the hour. This organization is currently using Webgility as a conduit between Magento and QuickBooks, and they would like to know if additional transactions in Magento, such as ship status and payments, can be mapped and processed in QuickBooks.
So we can map payments so that when you create a sales receipt in QuickBooks, whatever payment method was on the order in Magento comes in and is a payment method in QuickBooks. As far as ship status goes, what we can do is pull, if you've already shipped the item before we're pulling it into QuickBooks for you, we can look at that information, put in the tracking number and the shipping methods as a line item in the transaction.
Okay, excellent. Well, I want to thank both Chris and Raphael for their information today, and everybody who joined us, and everyone who submitted a question. We're sorry if we did not get to your question. Like I mentioned before, we will follow up with you directly. This seemed to be a pretty successful webinar, so we are considering turning it into a series. But if you have any other topics that you would like to hear from us, by all means, let us know. Other than that, again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and hope you have a pleasant rest of your afternoon.